completely expected. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure thing.
Yep. Okay.
Oh. Hey guys, sorry for the delay. Colin Moriarty, your boy Das Colin here. I'm joined by Nathan and Trevor, and we're going to talk about Castlevania Symphony of the Night. To get everyone caught up about what's going on, Twitch is actually down, shockingly and stunningly, for the second time this week. A technical problem has happened that is not our fault. And a broken clock is right twice a day, as they say. So I don't think that this is going to keep up very much longer. So we're on YouTube. We're using the Twitch chat still, in case people want to use the Twitch chat. We'll also use the YouTube chat. But most essentially, Nathan Swisher and Trevor Starkey are here with us. So Nathan and Trevor, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And we're going to be talking about Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the 1997 PlayStation 1 and Saturn classic. We're good? Okay. We wanted to do kind of a video game book club for this particular game because... Is there a dog barking in the background somewhere? Is that Portilla?
Not on my.
I might have one outside my apartment.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm not like having a stroke. Okay. Guys, let's begin our conversation about Symphony of the Night with this simple question. And I think we're going to start with Nathan. Nathan, have you played Symphony of the Night before?
Yes.
And-
So.
Okay, go ahead. Go on, please.
So the first time I played it was actually when it was released on XBLA. I grew up a Nintendo kid and then got an Xbox, so I never had access to PS1. So I played the XBLA version, and completed the game, got all the achievements and everything, loved it. So then I replayed it last month.
Excellent. And Trevor Starkey Belmont, are you going to have the same answer for us? Have you played it in the past before?
I have not. This was my first time through. I somehow made it through growing up with Nintendo and Super Nintendo, not having played any of the Metroid games or the Castlevania games. So this was my first experience of either. Had I known that Trevor Belmont was a character back when I was 5 in Castlevania 3, I probably would have loved the series because it's great to have a character named with your name.
Yeah, as we told, or as I was telling you guys when we were just kind of getting ready, that's when I see the name Trevor, that is the first thing I think of, is Trevor Belmont.
I now think of Trevor from GTA 5, but
oh, that's fair.
Had I known about it, I would have gone
I'm sure
with
you'd want
Belmont.
to be compared to him.
That's
Oh,
fair.
yeah.
So what I'm excited about, and I'm going to switch back to Nathan here, because what I'm excited about with this particular instance with the two of you guys is that we have someone that has played the game and has some experience with it, starting with Xbox 360, not back in the 90s, and then we have someone who has not played it until this month. So there's a little bit of a few years worth of difference there, which I'm excited about. So Nathan, tell me, what are your initial thoughts about Symphony of the Night? What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
Yeah, I love the game. I'm slowly starting to think this is my favorite genre of game, just the Metroidvanias in general. But no, it controls amazingly. The ambiance, the style of the game is great, and the map, just the design of everything is great as well. The fact that they created a map that works both normal and inverted is amazing to me.
And Trevor, as kind of more of a newcomer to the game, and having played Super Metroid and Castlevania back to back, which is so funny to me because these games, like Symphony of the Night, is so inspired by Super Metroid in such an obvious way. What did you think of the game?
I've been stealing myself for this for a few weeks since I beat it. I do not share your love of it. I think it's a good game, but it very much made me appreciate the strides that the industry has made since. I was playing this and kept feeling like I thought like Guacamelee and now or in the Blind Forest do a lot of the things that this game does, and they do it better. So had I played this 15 years ago or whatever, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But now coming into it fresh, there are definitely things that hold up, but there were a lot of times where I was just getting frustrated having to figure out, okay, now I've got this mist power, where did that leave me access to? And having to scour the whole map to figure out where I needed to get back to.
No, I can respect that, and I think that it's funny that my experience with it is different in the sense that I went back and started playing it just a couple of days ago. I've beaten the game, I don't know how many times. So I mean, I'm intimately familiar with it. I didn't feel like I needed to beat it again for this conversation because I know it so well. But I started playing, and I played about maybe a fourth of the way through the game, and I was struck in a different way, which was that I can't believe how well this game, in my opinion, has held up. I think that Super Metroid actually hasn't held up much at all, and I was really reminded of that when we were doing the book club, or Greg was doing it, and I just kind of was messing around with it for the first time in a while, and I'm like, this game is stiff, and this game, Samus is gigantic, on the screen, especially when you go back and play, the original Metro, which I did just a few weeks ago on my 3DS. The games are very different from each other, but obviously they're iterations of each other. But by the time you get to Symphony of the Night, I think that Konami had to learn a lot from Nintendo's mistakes, I think, and had made a game that was very fluid. The combat's very arcadey. It's very RPG-like, which I don't think Super Metroid was. So it's interesting to see, I think, two different opinions of it. Because I think that this game is essentially, I don't want to say flawless, but this game is a 10 if I had to give it a score. And I would say I would still feel that way right now.
And I absolutely, I can very much see where that comes from. And I definitely agree that given how old the game is, it definitely holds up better than something like Super Metroid. The art style and everything still feels good in the game. It was just a lot of the mechanics of the game still felt very old to me. The RPG mechanics, for example, a lot of it I just kind of felt I felt it was tacked on, or not. Maybe not tacked on is the right word, but I felt like I didn't know what any of the stats were doing for me. I felt like the only thing RPG-wise that I was really doing consistently was kind of leveling up my sword and my armor to try and survive the next room I was going into.
Nathan, do you agree with that? I mean, do you feel like some of the instances of role-playing game mechanics are tacked on, especially because this is really the first game of its kind? So I wonder if they were kind of trying to work that stuff out.
Yeah, I definitely see what Trevor's talking about. Like he said, the only thing I felt from leveling up was damage was going up, and even then, most of that's based on what equipment you find. But I actually don't. I agree more with you, Colin, that I think this game actually plays better than more recent games that are similar, like Guacamelee and Ori. It's hard to compare it to Ori because Ori's a lot more of a platformer, but no, yeah, I think it's definitely a huge improvement over Super Metroid.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think that, I remember Super Metroid very fondly, and a lot of people really love that game, but I wonder if some people have gone back and really played it recently, because I just feel like the stiffness of Super Metroid is something that really turned me on. Also the ambiguity of the game, which is something Trevor was touching on with Symphony of the Night, I actually think is even a bigger problem in Super Metroid.
100% in Super Metroid for the book club because that was the first time I'd ever played it. And yeah, there's some of the secrets in that are ridiculous, having to go around and scan every room with the tiny cone of the visor or whatever it's called, the X-scope, to find all the secrets is just ridiculous. But on the same vein, I think with Castlevania, getting to the inverted castle without a guide was just there's no way I was doing that.
Oh,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, Trevor, I was going to ask you, were you able to get to the inverted castle without the guide too? Because that is a somewhat obscure thing to know how to do that.
That was probably my favorite achievement, like personal achievement of the game. I knew about the inverted castle because the game has been around so long, but I made a specific choice to not really try and play with any guides for this. So when I randomly stumbled across in my inventory the gold and silver rings that had the kind of clues to where I was supposed to wear it, that was like, oh, that's a really cool discovery in the game itself. Because I'd played through, and at that point I had beaten Richter.
Yeah.
I went through and got the bad ending, just to kind of see what that was like. But then I went back, reloaded it, and was like, okay, I know there's more to this game. How do I get to it? And it was really cool stumbling across that.
Awesome.
Yeah. See, I feel like if I played that game when it came out, I would have loved that because I would have a lot more time to play games, and I'd have a lot more time to just explore and find everything in that game. But right now, there's just too many games to play and too much stuff to do.
Yeah, that's very much how I was. I felt a lot through this. I was like, I'm doing this for the book club, but if it weren't for that, I've got so many other things that that engage me more that I wanted to kind of jump back into. And probably would have rather than do kind of the extra inverted castle.
Yep.
The next question I want to ask you guys about this is that Castlevania 2, I'm a huge Castlevania fan, and I'm a huge Castlevania fan long before Symphony of the Night came out. This game touches on a specific other game, Rondo of Blood, at the very beginning of the game. And there are lots of call-outs to the original Castlevania, to Castlevania 2, and to Castlevania 3. And what I'm curious about is if you guys are Castlevania fans now and have played the NES trilogy and some of the other games and realized some of the touchstones, including the very beginning of the game, which is a direct ode to another Castlevania game. I'm wondering if you guys realized that, and if you guys knew that, and if it affected your gameplay at all. So I'll start with Nathan on this question. Did you know any of that, and did you realize that stuff?
No, I only know the backstory mostly from reading stuff online, reading Wikipedia or whatever. I'm pretty sure this may have been the first Castlevania game I have ever played. If it hasn't, it would be the DS one, Dawn of Sorrow. So I'm younger, I'm around Tim's age, so I didn't grow up with an NES or anything. No, I haven't played any of the originals.
And Trevor, have you gone back and played any of the old Castlevania games? Did you notice any of the odes, or because that's a famous thing to do in Castlevania games, to draw back to other Castlevania games?
I've not, as I said, this is the only one really I've played, but the storytelling aspect of that still made it clear that the opening of this game was the end of a previous game. It was pretty, and I think that because I also went through and like read the instruction guide for this on the Vita, because we don't get those anymore. So I was like, I need to play this like it was a game I was playing 15 years ago. So it gave a little bit of setup about that. But no, I haven't gone back and played any of the others. I don't have really the access to them right now.
Okay.
But I might. I mean, it definitely it piqued my interest, and it definitely seems like a weird thing that this franchise has been dormant for as long as it has.
I agree with that completely, and it's actually a super frustrating thing for me as well. To call it out specifically, Castlevania. All right, so Castlevania Symphony of the Night starts at the end of Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was a 1993 PC Engine game that was released in Japan, and you play as Richter Belmont. And the year is 1792. What's so cool about the way Symphony of the Night begins is that even his health bar and all of that stuff is ripped straight out of that game. So like the entire ending when you're walking up, that walk up the stairs to Dracula's throne room is a famous Castlevania scene in Castlevania 1, and Castlevania 3, and Castlevania 4, etc., and so on. So that immediately harkens back to the old games, which is really cool, and this old character. So Richter fights Dracula. Maria comes and saves him if necessary. They, vanquish Dracula or whatever, and then jump ahead 4 years to 1796, which is when Alucard enters the castle, meets death, gets his power stripped, all that kind of stuff. What's cool about this is that Alucard was introduced originally in Castlevania 3, which took place in 1476. And Alucard, is Dracula spelled backwards, which I'm sure a lot of people realize, and is Dracula's son. So there's all these callbacks to the old games. Even in the intro sequence, when you walk through that hallway with the zombies and then get to that area with the fishmen, that is the first stage of Castlevania 1. When you meet the ferryman that brings you across the water in the underground caverns, that is a throwback to Castlevania 2 and the ferryman in Castlevania 2. So there's all sorts of really awesome things in the game, including the enemies, like the enemies in the library that have the swords and they're holding their heads. Those are from the pirate ship in Castlevania 3. So there's all sorts of really cool throwbacks for fans of the series in the game. It's cool that, at least for Trevor, and I'm going to bring you back up, that you enjoyed the game with no reference to the old Castlevania games, which I think is really kind of cool, because I enjoy it so much for a lot of different reasons. Go ahead.
And it certainly came through, in that stellar voice acting that they really kind of drove home some of those kind of filling in the backstory points. I did want to touch on, because I watched the Let's Play after I had already played through the game, and I had no problem beating Dracula into the intro segment. So I did until you did that, I didn't know that Maria popped up in there. So that was just another weird little I missed in the game apparently.
Yeah, so Maria is. What's interesting about Maria is that she's a playable character actually in the Saturn version of the game, and if you and actually I think on the PSP version of the game, because it came with Dracula Chronicles X
and the Xbox 360
version, which has I think redubbed audio and stuff like that. So
no, it's the same terrible voice acting.
Is it? They redubbed it somewhere. It might have been on the PSP one, because Nottingham, the guy that was in Infamous, did the voice of Dracula, I think, in one of these redubs. It might have been the PSP version. So anyway, I as a kid and growing up always assumed that you were supposed to lose to Dracula. and Maria comes in and gives you power, and then you destroy him. But it's true, as people were saying in the comments, I had never even really bothered to fight him straight up because I was always like, this is the final boss fight at the end. You must have to die here. So it's funny how like with some trial and error, you actually can be able to beat him with the cross and stuff like that.
And it's actually kind of interesting. That kind of reminded me of a throwback to Ridley at the beginning of Super Metroid, where you can fight him and you can lose or you can win, and either way, the story continues.
Yep. Yeah, it's basically uninterrupted. I mean, nothing's really any different regardless of what happens. So we have the Richter versus Dracula fight in the beginning, and then what I really liked about that too, and Trevor might feel differently about this specifically, although maybe you guys both will because you didn't play the old NES Castlevania games, is that Richter feels heavy. Richter feels the way Castlevania used to feel. And I think what's really cool about this is that they're basically setting you up in the beginning of the game to be like, this is a normal Castlevania game. And it feels like a normal Castlevania game, and here's some familiar imagery and some familiar characters, and then suddenly Richter's gone, and they give you Alucard, who's much faster, who uses a sword instead of a whip, all these kinds of things that I think Castlevania fans will really appreciate. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to go to you first, Nathan, here, is what struck you, like, let's say the first hour of the game that you started playing the game. Did you feel overwhelmed by the map, or were you kind of intrigued and interested in exploring it? Because the game is somewhat linear in the beginning, but then becomes wide open about 25% into the game, and you can go in many different directions.
So I play games a lot like you do, where I'm super meticulous. I don't do story missions until all the side quests that I can do are done. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this type of game is one of my favorites, is just exploring that map is something that I would love doing, or I love doing. So no, I didn't feel overwhelmed by it. I do think they kind of layered in slowly, like you said, and that's useful, where the first 25 is pretty linear, then you start unlocking ways. I think that's a really good way to do it. But no, I wasn't overwhelmed at all.
How about you, Trevor? How did you feel about the map?
Yeah, I was never overwhelmed, but there were definitely I would get to maybe a point and be like, oh well, I feel like I'm probably not prepared to take on this guy, so let me try another route, and I would go and find another boss to fight through. But yeah, no, it never was I like, oh my god, there's so much here. Where do I go next? It was just I'll try going this way. Like I said though earlier, once it got to, I wasn't keeping track of where various colored doors were, or where some of the things that I knew I couldn't get to until I had a double jump or could fly. I wasn't keeping track of where a lot of those things were, so when I got a new power and had to go back and try and find some of that stuff, that was when it got a little more tedious, and I was like, okay, well, crap, now, so I would just kind of scour the castle until I found somewhere new.
Yeah, I mean, that's the game is a little obtuse, probably because of the time it was made with that kind of stuff. I think the Castlevania games that came on GBA and DS did it a little bit better, where there's 6 or 7 iterations of Symphony of the Night on the handhelds that are really good, starting with Circle of the Moon, which was a really fantastic game, a launch game for GBA. And it gets a little bit better to explain what you might have missed. I remember on the GBA games, being a kid in high school and early in college, and overlaying my on-screen map with like maps that were on GameFAQs and trying to figure out like what fucking room I'm missing. Like I don't know like where I'm supposed to go next. So sometimes that stuff is frustrating. But someone tweeted out the other day, I don't remember who it was, a game industry guy, saying like there's no better feeling in a game like a Metroidvania style game like Symphony of the Night, where you're lost for a half an hour and then you figure it out. And that happened to me as someone who's really familiar with the game. Just when I was playing last night, I was kind of running to the east side of the castle, going up to the library, going up to that outdoor area with the giant skeletons or skulls and stuff like that. And then I was like, shit, like I'm not supposed to go here yet. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go underground. I got to hit that switch and then go into the underground portion of the castle, whatever. And I felt so good and happy about that, and then kept on playing for like another hour because I felt rewarded as opposed to getting frustrated. So I guess my experience might have been a little different.
I mean, yeah, getting those moments was definitely a reward, but it's kind of like you guys always talk about. There were a lot of times where I felt like the game, and maybe just because I've now gotten so accustomed to the hand-holding that we have in modern games, but there were a lot of times where I felt like the game wasn't necessarily respecting my time in giving me any kind of hint on what I should be going to next or where I needed to figure out.
Yep.
All right, so I want to talk about another, I think, I want to talk about 2 aesthetic key aspects of the game, I think. One is the way the game looks, and the other is the way the game sounds. And so I want to talk, Nathan, we'll start with you, I guess, with what do you think about the way the game looks? I often say that PlayStation games in particular do not age well, but these are the more polygonal games that don't age well. these games use sprites, 32-bit sprites, really
Yep.
beautiful graphics, beautiful backgrounds, parallax scrolling, all sorts of really cool shit in the game.
Yep.
How do you think the game looks?
No, I think it holds up great. They put little touches everywhere that just, I don't know, make the game have a really good sense of style. So one thing I love that they do is when you're playing, if you're moving to the right and you decide to switch directions as Alucard, he actually glides. He stops walking, he glides backwards, and then turns around. So he glides for a little bit off of the air, and just stuff like little visual touches, and I guess that's somewhat of a gameplay touch too, that really add to the style to show that like he's not human, he has supernatural powers. And yeah, there's just the art styles and all the different distinct areas. So like walking through the library and then walking through the underground caverns, it makes the castle feel huge because there's so many different areas that look completely different.
And Trevor, how do you feel about the way the game looks and the kind of the scope of it? Because I agree with what Nathan was saying in the sense that because of the diverse array of landscapes in the castle, which is very similar to me, I know you guys haven't played it, Castlevania 3 does a really nice job of making the journey to the castle feel awesome and huge, and then the castle itself feel huge as well. How did you feel about the aesthetic of the game in terms of its visuals?
Yeah, visually, I played the whole thing on my Vita, and I think it absolutely stacks up and holds up against some of the other things that even now are coming out on Vita, because they didn't go the super 3D that everybody was trying to do on the PS1 route. There are a couple things where like the background is clearly a sky kind of, or like clouds in the sky floating around that look out of place with the rest of the game, but because it stayed 2D. I think visually it held up great, and I really enjoyed the soundtrack of it all too. I think that definitely holds up to modern games.
Yeah, so Trevor, let's stick on that topic of soundtrack then, because it's the same thing with Mega Man sometimes, where we did the Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 stream the other day, and I know these songs really well, but I almost forget how good all of the songs are when you really listen to them, and that was what I was struck with the exception of that ending song, which everyone hates in Symphony of the Night. The soundtrack is fucking superb. And I wonder, Trevor, if you can tell me, or if you remember, like what some of your favorite songs were from this, or some favorite areas, because I was really, when I was in the underground area, I was like, man, this song is awesome. This song is awesome, awesome, awesome. So do you have any favorites?
I mean, nothing like it didn't jump out at me as iconic as like the Final Fantasy themes and stuff that I remember growing up with. But it's definitely stuff that I was exposed to the music of Castlevania before I was exposed to the game, because it would pop up on like my Pandora game stations and stuff like that, and just the still kind of like rock nature of it in a lot of the different areas felt fun, and I mean it was never something that I just kind of stopped and listened to the music, but it was great to always kind of have there as I was traversing the castle. So no specific section stood out to me, but I enjoyed kind of the whole experience.
Nathan, do you agree? Do you feel like the whole experience, like the whole audio fidelity of the game was pretty high caliber, but maybe nothing stood out to you?
Yeah, I can't think of a specific area that had a certain sound or song that I can name, but yeah, I agree that definitely the whole experience, especially the sound design for the enemies and weapons, like I feel like that stuff was on point.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's funny to me because I think that and it's each his own. The music to me is like such a standout in this game that I think that it's something I couldn't help but notice. I don't want to say often, but I'll play a game on mute and listen to music or a podcast, or like if I'm playing Vita, I'll just mute it and watch football or something like that. But this is a game where I have to listen to it. Not only because like what you guys were saying, the music's great. We were talking about that, but also the little enemy sounds. Like when you hit some of the creatures, they make their own unique gasping sound or whatever. It's kind of cool and ahead of its time. The one thing that does not stand out and does not do very well in this game is the voice acting. And I'm curious what you guys think, and Trevor, we'll go back to you. I'm curious what you guys think about the voice acting. The way I was explaining to Greg before was that the writing is excellent in the game. Dracula's conversation with Richter in the beginning of the game is awesome. Very well written. Dracula's slouched over in his chair holding a glass of wine and like throws it. It's like it's a very classic shot of the Castlevania throne room, but the voice acting sounds like they recorded in a tin can. Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. Like when I'm not playing video games, I'm doing a lot of theater, and so as a sometimes actor, I was listening to this thinking, what actor in their right mind would let that be their take? it made me want, and I didn't bother looking up the cast, but it made me think that probably a lot of these, I mean, and it was well before voice acting and video game acting was kind of the mainstream that it is now. But it definitely made me think that probably the people involved were less focused on the performance and more maybe a designer that got brought into the recording studio for that line or something like that.
And I'm wondering, Nathan, do you agree with that? I mean, like, because I think the voice, like, again, to Trevor's point, like the voice acting, it sounds like a one take kind of like Sinatra thing where he walks into the studio. He's like, "No, you got the take. I'm out of here now."
Yep. You guys have been talking about Mega Man 8 during the Mega Man stream, and it reminded me of that, where it's just one take, they're out. It does not sound
Mega
at all.
Mega Man 8
Mega Man 8's
way
on another
worse.
level.
Yeah,
but but so this isn't that bad, but it's still pretty bad.
I mean, admittedly, like I replayed like Final Fantasy X recently, and there are still horrible moments in that game that came out, years later, that are as bad as the stuff in this.
I'm wondering if this is more of a localization issue. Is the Japanese audio more I don't know, higher quality?
It could be. I don't think it is. I think because you see this in games like Resident Evil as well, where it's where I feel like people were just happy to get voice acting in a game, and when I in a console game anyway, when I think about console games from the mid to late '90s, I'm really kind of hard pressed to think of one that does have good voice acting. So I think it is just kind of the nature.
It's a product of the time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. So, all right. By the way, Zyger1337 makes a good point in the Twitch chat. By the way, we're not on Twitch right now because Twitch is broken, but the Twitch chat's still going and people are hanging out over there. He says, voice acting is meh, writing is good, but music is great. And I would agree with that in the sense that the musical fidelity of the game really does help balance out the shitty quality of the voice acting. And I do think the writing is actually really good. Even though there's not too much dialogue in the game, when you do meet a character like Maria or you meet the librarian or something like that, I feel like it stands out and it's a memorable occasion. Or when you meet Death in the beginning and he takes all your shit. It's just the voice acting's a little bad. And I've never looked at the voice actors either in the sense of do they still work or were they doing one-off things? Were they people that just worked at Konami that were like, can you read some of these lines kind of thing? Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. So here, let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the game. What were some of the memorable boss fights or moments in the game that you guys really remember, whether it's in the standard castle or the inverted castle? And we'll go to Nathan first. Are there any moments, Nathan, to you that stand out in the game, whether it's a memorable boss fight or an encounter with a character or whatever?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, the very beginning's iconic. You're walking up that spire to the small room that Dracula's in. So that encounter is definitely something that I remember well. And like I said, it reminds me of Ridley, where you fight him, and whether you win or lose, you keep going. The encounter with Death also, where he takes all your stuff. That moment. As for bosses, I remember the Colosseum very well. Like when you fight, or when Richter comes out and he talks to you for a little bit, and then you have to fight the boss in there. Or is it two bosses? I can't remember exactly. But that scene where Richter's talking to you over while you're in the pit, I remember that very well.
How about you, Trevor? Are there any memorable stand-up moments? Doesn't have to be a boss fight, but any memorable moments?
So the one boss that I think the one boss that I just didn't bother with because I tried time and time again and just kept failing was the giant guy that shoots lightning at you. I jotted his name down, I think, somewhere. Galamoth? Yeah, I don't know. Giant guy, shot out lightning, has like a whole crap ton of hit points that I could just... he felt like the Ruby or Emerald equivalent to go to like Final Fantasy VII, where I could beat the game without ever seeing that guy just fine. So yeah, Galamoth, thank you. A quick aside in the Twitch chat. I just kind of gave up on him. But the other one that stands out was the boss. And I don't know this one's name either, but the one that had just a crap ton of body parts that would fall on you.
I was just about to say him. Yeah, that.
Chip away at those body parts, just because that was just different, and you had to go through a different process than like some of the other fights where it's just okay, this guy is moving in this manner, so you just have to avoid him here, attack him a couple times, move to the other side. So yeah, the body parts one definitely stood out.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there are iconic moments in the game that I think stand out to me as well. But again, I look at this game as being, we have Alucard, we have Richter, we have Dracula and Death, we have Maria and the Librarian, and a few other characters. But the protagonist of the game to me is actually the castle. And I wonder if, like, when I think about the game, I think about the iconic intro sequence, which I think is brilliant, and something that we didn't have any context for when it first came out because we never had Rondo of Blood in the United States. So we didn't even really know what the hell was happening in the beginning of the game. We thought that was made for that game, and it ended up not being that case at all. But I wonder if my favorite moment of the game is simply the act of exploring. And it's one of those games where you almost wish that you didn't remember any of it, because that first moment of walking into new areas and hearing new music and fighting new enemies, finding new relics and new powers, is really the entire experience that makes it so special. So it's the way I feel about The Last of Us, frankly, where it's like, The Last of Us' star is Joel and Ellie, but also the world and just exploring it. And so I feel a similar way about Symphony of the Night. To the point of voice acting, Devin CM makes a great point in the Twitch chat. He says, Metal Gear Solid has probably the earliest example of very good voice acting. And that's a great point. Metal Gear Solid, obviously a game from 1998, so not that far off, about a year and a change away from the release of Symphony of the Night, and they did it right for sure. And I definitely wanted to call that out. Now, the one thing I want to talk about, I'm going to go to Trevor for this one first, is the design of the game. When we played the game the first time with no spoilers, and Trevor, you had said the game had been around long enough where you knew that the castle went inverted. That's not something you know when you're playing the game until you go through the portal and then you're in the castle and it's upside down. And you go back, and what I was realizing when I was playing the game again, and I've done this in the past too, is that the design of the game is immaculate. That, like, the castle is actually designed in really clever ways to work upside down, and you don't see it until you're actually there. But if you pay attention after having played it once, you see everything. And so I'm wondering what you guys think about the design of the game, Trevor, and I want to go to you first on this. Is the design something that you can overstate in Symphony of the Night, or is it really one of the stars of the game?
No, I definitely agree that the level design and the fact that, the whole thing plays flipped upside down, even knowing that going into it, I would be kind of traversing an area and be like, well, there's no way that's going to work. How am I going to get around when I'm up there? And so it was, even knowing it still made me like I was just appreciating it the whole time. And so the fact that they did that and threw that in there especially stood out to me, because that is an aspect that, like, so many people that play this game are never going to see, especially back then. But even now, like, people rarely play through the entirety of a game. So if you got to Richter and fought him and didn't know that you had to wear the rings and get the glasses, like, you would have missed out on half of this game. And it blew my mind that they took the time to design a game that they could do that for people that just weren't even going to discover that.
Yeah, that is one of the best parts, is that you can beat Symphony of the Night and get not the real ending, but a satisfactory end of the game, I guess, and never know that you missed really more than half of it at that point. Nathan, how did you feel about the design? Do you agree with what Trevor was saying?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. Like you said, the first time you played through it, when I played through it when it first came to Xbox, I didn't pay attention to it nearly as much as this time running through. I'm noticing all the little details in the ceiling that are like, oh, okay, I'm going to be able to jump over that when it's flipped upside down. And the fact that I feel like they could have cheated a little bit, because by the time you get to the inverted castle, you have the bat form, you can fly everywhere. The fact that they made it so you can pretty much explore most of the inverted castle without even using the bat form is, like, exceptional to me. The fact that it's all traversable without, or almost all traversable without even using that form, when they could have just cheated a little bit and been like, well, you got to fly through most of the inverted castle, because we didn't want to design it that way.
And I want to go to the chat here real quick, because this is a question I was pondering as well. Nick Hill on YouTube asks, Colin, what Symphony of the Night sub-weapon do you use the most? I personally use the book that flies around you, because it acts like as a nice barrier, and you can actually just destroy a lot of enemies, especially weaker enemies with it. Trevor, I'm curious, did you find a sub-weapon that you liked more than the others?
I latched onto the holy water and just kind of kept spamming that in places. That brings me to another one of my weird things with this game, was that I wanted that action to be mapped to like the triangle button instead of the triangle button doing that weird dash backwards that I feel like I never used in the game. So, but as far as the sub weapon itself, no, I was definitely I like would play around with them, but the holy water was definitely kind of what I found myself gravitating towards.
Nathan, were you a holy water fan too, or did you use
Um,
a barrage of weapons?
When I originally played it and when I played the DS one, I know I definitely switched around, but this time I actually used the holy water after watching you play the original Castlevania because I saw how OP it was, and I was like, okay, let's see how OP it is in this game, and you can kill most of the bosses by saying it pretty easily.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Trevor. Go ahead. I
No,
interrupted.
yeah, no, I was just agreeing with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the holy water in Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 3 I think are essential, especially in Castlevania 1. As you guys saw my playthrough, I need it. I have to have it. I don't even know how to
Yeah.
play the game without it at this point. I think that in Symphony of the Night, the weapons are useful in different ways. For instance, in the
Yep.
original Castlevania, using the axe on the bat is kind of necessary. The holy water is not going to work on him. You figure out ways that the weapons work really well. I think that there are weapons that are useless that look cool, like the dagger. I think looks really cool, especially when it hits a wall and then it just bounces back. There's a lot of nice
Yep.
animations there. The powder you put on the ground is like totally weird. I hate that weapon. It's such a bizarre weapon. But I agree. One thing I was having difficulty with that I never had difficulty with before when I was playing it again on PS3 was the up B to use the sub weapon is standard in Castlevania. That's always the way it's been.
Yeah.
But I kept using it on mistake, and I don't know like the different way I was holding the controller this time, or how this controller was different from the original PS1 controller, not even the DualShock. Might have had something to do with that. But I am very partial to the Holy Book, for sure. And the cross is pretty good too.
Yeah, the cross is the other one.
Yeah, the cross is excellent. But you gotta use what's most comfortable, and there are different bosses I think that require different attacks.
The cross I felt like cost too much to really like. I did
Yeah.
a cost benefit analysis basically of it, where I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose way too much power if I use that for the few seconds where it's gonna do any good for me.
Yep.
So the other question I really wanted to ask was about like kind of your equipment and your build, and the way you played the game with accessories and stuff like that. Did you guys find the need to level up, to grind? Did you guys grind for money? Did you guys grind for experience? And did you buy a lot of equipment from the librarian, or were you kind of finding it more organically? So let's go to Nathan first on this one.
So this time around, it being like the third time I played it, I think because I had to play through as Richter for the achievements, I decided to grind a little bit at the beginning because you're so OP, before death takes away all your stuff, and you can grind out a good 4 or 5 levels there pretty easily. But other than that, I didn't really
Clever,
do any
very clever.
grinding. Yeah. Other than that, and the fact that that hallway spawns so many enemies, you just walk back and forth, and you can grind pretty easily there. Other than that, I didn't have any point really where I needed to grind. And when it comes to equipment, yeah, I think I bought one thing. Well, you have to buy one thing from the
Yeah,
librarian, right?
you have to buy
Yeah.
the thing that unlocks blue
Oh,
doors.
Yep. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think,
that was one thing where I that it took me forever to figure that out. That I was like, I don't know where to go from here, and finally I went back to the librarian and realized, oh, I've got to buy this thing that gets me through that blue door.
so I think that was the only thing I bought from the librarian. So yeah, I think I found all my equipment through
And
just exploring.
Trevor,
Yeah.
did you spend a lot of money at the librarians, or did you just kind of do it kind of natural?
When I was still trying to actually get through Galamoth, I went back to the librarian to like stack up on like elixirs and stuff to heal myself through that whole ordeal. But eventually, I was just like, I don't care anymore. I feel like I didn't buy any really equipment from him. I got everything that I kind of used throughout the game, just kind of in finding it. In terms of like my build, I just kind of would equip whatever shot the stats up, even though I didn't know necessarily what the stats were doing for me. Except for, and this is where I kind of, I don't know if you do this too, Colin, but I thought of you as I did this, because you played, you open every chest and stuff. Every time I entered a room with the spikes and the spike breaker, I would equip that thing and just kill every spike in the castle, or in that room, even though I didn't need to do that at all.
Yeah.
Even the ones on the ceiling.
It did no good for me. Yep, I'd just jump around and get all the ones on the ceiling just for the OCD nature of it.
Yep.
No, I can totally appreciate that. I think that the one of the final questions I want to ask, and we'll take some reader questions and kind of go from here, is how long did you play the game? You guys obviously both got the real ending in the inverted castle, but how long did you play the game, and what percentage did you get up to? Because the game can be glitched to hell to get a percentage higher than 200%. So Let's start with Nathan here on this one. Nathan, how long did you play the game, and at least on this playthrough, and did you try to like do all these crazy glitches to get percentage higher than 200?
No, so I just decided I wanted to beat the inverted castle. So I pretty much, after getting to the inverted castle, I ran through, just going straight to each part of Dracula to beat him. So I only completed it with like 126%, because and most of that was in the main castle. But I did one of the achievements on the original, or when I originally played it, is to get 200.6%. So I have done that before. Um, no, this time I'm not 100% sure what my time was. Probably like 8 hours, I would say. Um, Maybe a little bit more. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, 126% I think was what I ended at.
And Trevor, how about you? What was your experience in terms of time and percentage?
So I jotted it down.
Very smart.
187.2% is what I ended with at level 45, and the time that I spent in game was about 12 hours 15 minutes. But I also figured I probably tacked on a couple extra hours of that from like all of the time I would travel around, go the wrong way. Whereas if I had gone left, I'd find a save, but I went right instead and went into a boss that killed me.
And then died, yep.
So I ended up having to replay a lot of sections because I had gone far enough away without a save. So yeah, probably about 14, 15 hours total. And again, I know that that's probably on the high end side, but I was playing like just kind of figuring out where to go as I went with zero background on it. So it was, a good time investment, but probably, not Nathan's 8.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I ran through.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and I want to just go on here. I'm going to go on my laptop just to look something up real quick. But is there anything, Nathan, we'll start with you. Is there anything that has been left unsaid so far that you want to say about the game? Because I'm kind of curious if we've touched on everything that is most relevant to you when it comes to Symphony of the Night, or if there's like some thoughts that you have about the game that we might not have touched on.
No, I think the big parts for me were the fact that they designed the castle the way they did to work upside down, inverted, and just the visual touches of everything and the art style. Those were the two biggest things to me. You mentioned how Richter feels. I kind of wish I had played the originals, because you mentioned the way you start, Richter feels a lot heavier. But for me, this one was my first Castlevania, so the way Alucard feels is how I want Castlevania to feel, which is why I think I like the Game Boy Advanced and DS ones. Okay, I guess that's the one thing I wanted to mention is for people that want to play more games like this, those 6 games were fantastic. I haven't played through all of them. I've played most of them. I think I beat like half of them. And I know the Game Boy Advance ones are all on Wii eShop on Virtual Console, so you can get those for like $8 on Wii U.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor, do you have any thoughts about? Oh, are you still there? It's coming up as a black box. Did Trevor get disconnected?
Yeah, it looks like he's frozen for me.
Oh, bummer. All right. So, by the way, I wanted to kind of comment on this. The real Alazam and you. Oh, are you back?
Oh, no, he just dropped.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
Oh yeah, he's out. Oh, so is he back?
Sorry. Yeah, but my stream apparently froze, so I.
No, it's okay. Welcome back. I wanted to, before we go to you, Trevor, because I want to hear some of your thoughts. The real Alazam said in the chat that 200.6% is the max map. That's not true. You can get 200.6 pretty organically, but you can go way higher than that.
Yeah.
And the game can be glitched pretty significantly to go way higher than that if you want. But people are getting in like the 200 teens by doing some pretty normal glitches.
I think they set that as the achievement because that was what you could do without like doing any crazy glitches.
All right, so Trevor, we were asking, and I don't know how much you heard about what Nathan was saying, but I was kind of curious if there was something about the game that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about. Is there some thought that we've not encountered yet?
I touched on it a little bit with the fact that like I never used the backdash feature at all. There were a lot of things like that I felt like were there that I just never dealt with. Like the familiars, I never really bothered switching around or trying anything new with them. The spells, I almost completely missed until I saw it in the menu. So I never did anything with those. And the shield as part of like the equipment, I don't think I ever used that at all. Or like if I did to see if it did anything, it would just get batted away. And I was like, okay, well then what good did that do me? I'm just gonna double equip or like equip an item in there and use that when I need it, and have like the whatever sword I'm using. So there were just those aspects that I felt, again, like coming new to this, I was like, I don't know why it's giving me these things, what they're there for. I don't know if using them would have made the game a better experience, but and then I remember going back to kind of did I grind through it all? It really didn't. There were definitely some times where I just was like, I don't want to fight all these enemies, so I would just kind of use a mist power through a whole section, and just be like, I just want to. I know where I need to get to now. I just want to get there and just leave me alone.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. It's maybe not the best idea to do in a role playing game where you really have to pay the price later on in the game. But I don't think Symphony of the Night's that challenging. So like I think that
Yeah, and not grinding didn't, apart from not being able to beat Galamoth. I made it through the game just fine, without it, and was able to beat Dracula and go through that whole rigmarole.
awesome.
I definitely agree with the fact that the spells are pretty much useless. They're also kind of hard to pull off sometimes. But the familiars I actually found were pretty useful. If you find them all, I think I only had 2 after that at the end of this run, but they all do some pretty useful effects. I know the fairy for sure is useful because she just revives you when you die.
Yeah, and that was like what I stayed with for a while, and then eventually I was like, oh, I've got these other couple. Let me see what they do, and I just didn't find anything. Except no, I had the ghost at one point, and he opened a door for me that I didn't realize like needed to be opened.
And Slothgoon88 was saying on Twitch that everyone's experience is unique, and that's why I love it so much. I agree. Like the Symphony of the Night can be played differently by different people. You can play as, if you put your name in as Richter, for instance, you can play as Richter, which is a totally different game. It's the same quest basically, but you're using it. The whip, the Belmont whip, instead of using something like the sword and the armor and stuff like that. So I'm glad that it seems like we have 3 different kind of takes on this. And what I'm curious about with you guys now, and I'm not sure this is a question I want to ask you guys, but I'm not sure if you are prepared to answer it in the sense that it seems like maybe you guys aren't OG Castlevania fans in this sense, but is this the direction Castlevania should still be going in? Lords of Shadow I think was a really nice game, the original one. Very Simon's Quest-like, I think, actually, and intentionally so. But they've really not made a game in the Metroidvania style after doing them year after year after year since like 2007 or 2008. So I'm curious, and we'll start with Trevor. Is this the direction you would want Castlevania to go in, or do you want like a more of a 3D Castlevania game, or more of the old school side-scrolling Castlevania games, or what?
Yeah, I mean, not having never really until this played a Metroidvania game that was a Metroid or a Vania. I love the genre, and I love things that like Tomb Raider does with it. And like I said, I love Guacamelee. So they're definitely on the right track for this, and not having the history, I definitely think it's a good game, and would love to see them do more with it. Just kind of making it more modernizing. So 2D versus 3D. I think the 2D worked in their favor in this one because it still holds up. But if they could do a 3D that had all of the great elements of this game, and it doesn't look like something that nobody wants to play in 10 years, then I think, in terms of that, I think it's all going to come down to the art design. So I think, yes, this is definitely a good place for the series to be, but I don't have anything really to compare it to.
Fair enough. Nathan, what are your thoughts? Same question.
So you said plenty of times that you wish they would just annualize this like they do Mega Man. Or they kept annualizing it, I guess. And I agree with that. I played Lords of Shadow, and I like Lords of Shadow a lot, but it's definitely different. But I don't think it has to be 2D, because honestly, my favorite Metroidvania game is Metroid Prime 1. And I think that pulled off the Metroidvania style and gameplay perfectly in a 3D world. So I don't think it has to be 2D. And I know Tomb Raider the rebooted Tomb Raider took a lot of gameplay ideas from the Metroidvania.
And like the Batman
genre.
Arkham games,
And the Arkham games too. Yep. So it can definitely work in 3D. So I don't know if it has to be 2D, but yeah, I definitely want them to keep going with this genre and keeping the namesake alive, because Nintendo doesn't want to make Metroid games for some reason.
Yeah, it's very weird, isn't it? It's very weird. Retro keep making Donkey Kong games.
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
maybe it'll come to mobile.
Yeah, maybe we'll, oh,
Yep.
Jesus Christ. David Scenario, I'm sorry, I'm probably saying that name wrong, on Twitch says, yes, I want more games like this, and they butchered it with Mirror of Fate on 3DS. That was the biggest thing, was Mirror of Fate was the last kind of Castlevania game we got of this style. This was by Mercury Steam, the guys that
Yep.
did Lords of Shadow and Lords of Shadow 2, and that game was bad.
Yeah, I never played
So,
it.
oh my god, that game was really disappointing. Really, really disappointing. I went in so excited about that game. I got so much shit for giving it the review I gave it to, but it's like, it is what it is. This game is, waste your money if you want, but this is like an embarrassment compared to the way Ego is making his Castlevania games. And that's what's so funny, is that Iga's really given a lot of, and when I say Iga, I mean Koji Igarashi, who was the writer and kind of producer and one of the designers on Symphony of the Night, who's given a lot of credit for Symphony of the Night and the Metroidvania kind of proliferation. But it was really Toru Hagihara, I have written here, who's the director and producer of Symphony of the Night. So it's funny that this guy, and this guy, Toru Hagihara, doesn't even have like a Wikipedia page or anything. Like,
Oh, really?
but he's really the director and the force behind Symphony of the Night. And Ego was just one of his dudes that then, with Circle of the Moon and all those kinds of things, like ended up kind of proliferating this particular genre. And so my personal opinion is that I would like to see it come back. You could easily see this being annualized as sort of a platform.
Yep.
And I would love, I'm not into like spamming the shit out of new games that are like old games. But when you have a formula like this that works so well, there's no reason that you shouldn't use some resources to make it. Because I'm not saying that making a game like this is easy. It's not, but it is not as intensive as making Uncharted. You know what I mean? Like you can take a team of 20 people to make a game like this. It's not really like the end of the world, So anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys. We've been going for a little under an hour. I hope you had a good time. And I do want to thank Nathan and Trevor for joining me, guys. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. I hope you had a good time
Yep.
talking
Yeah,
about the
absolutely.
game. I want to make an announcement here that we do have the next Video Game Book Club game picked and who will be doing it. Tim Geddes will be leading the next Video Game Book Club, and it's going to be for Super Mario World 2. Yoshi's Island, which I think is a really, really good selection and an interesting selection, especially because that's not a game I really like very much. And so I'm really interested to see what Tim has to say about it and what our new group of Patreon supporters will have to say about it as well. So I do appreciate you guys joining us for this. Obviously, this will be archived in case you came in late. We'll have it on YouTube soon. We're sorry that we're not over on Twitch. We would be, but it's broken. I swear to God, it's not our fault. So until next time, thank you for supporting us on Kind of Funny Games. Nathan, Trevor, thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you had a nice time. And thank you all out there. We will see you next time. Au revoir.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you guys.
No problem. I was gonna say YouTube. I think they're
Awesome.
on it. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks.
See
See
ya.
ya.
See you in the Facebook group, Nathan.
Yep.